Labour said they'd smash the gangs to stop the Channel migrant crisis. Here's how that's going. The gangs are giving illegal immigrants discounts worth thousands of pounds if they document their Channel crossing on social media to advertise it to other illegal immigrants. £2,000 is the amount they have wiped off their bill if they put their crossing on TikTok. Nearly 4,500 people have crossed so far this year, which is a record high. But, I mean, is anyone surprised? I'm not.
The previous government, they wanted to deport us, but now they make the procedure easier for us.
So you like the Labour government? Yes. OK.
Well, at least we found someone who does like the government. But if you thought that was bad, get a load of this.
You know, there's a prison officer role that is currently ongoing and, of course, sponsored visa. Some time ago, I made a video about this and some people were like, oh, you don't sponsor. So there are two key things to clarify, though. So there's two opportunities, one specifically for ladies and, of course, the second one for both gender.
So it turns out that we are outsourcing our prison officers to foreign countries like Nigeria. And we can see chaps, like the one we just saw there, informing his compatriots that they can take the job. Now, I know what you're thinking. What? That Nigeria, the fabulously corrupt country where bribery is absolutely rife? What, we're hiring prison officers from that Nigeria? Now, hey, look, I'm not saying that the bloke in that clip, of course, is corrupt or indeed doing anything wrong, but surely, at the very least, we are giving them a proper, thorough interview. Everything's fine. What's that? Oh, we're interviewing them over Zoom. Oh, great. Oh, OK. We hired 2,340 foreign national prison officers. Can you guess what one of the main problems is? Anyone? Yeah, they can't speak English. Yeah, seriously. I mean, is it any wonder, really, that this stuff is happening? Welcome back, and we continue with that big breaking news that Daniel Abed Khalif, he's 21 years old. He's a serving member of the British Army. He's awaiting trial for Terror and Official Secrets Act offences, has escaped from Wandsworth Prison early this morning. I mean, how could that guy possibly get out, eh? With that crack team of prison officers that we're hiring. Of course, this happened as well, didn't it?
He jumped down to where a black vehicle was waiting for him with the car door open. He hopped in the vehicle and the vehicle left at speed.
Oh, God, well, look, hey, it's a mystery to me. It's a mystery to me as to how all these people are getting out of prison. But anyway, everyone here at GB News wants a better Britain. That is our aim. That's our ambition. But sometimes that does start by pointing out the obvious problems. And this country is clearly broken. The people smuggling gangs are not being smashed. In fact, they are currently offering discounts to illegal migrants to advertise their journeys on TikTok. And we are giving visas to Nigerian men who have been interviewed over a Zoom call and foreign nationals who don't speak English. And then we're trusting them to guard our prisons. Let's get thoughts from my panel this evening. We, of course, have GB News star Miriam Cates. We've got Tory peer Lord Bailey and ex-Labour Party advisor Matthew Larzer. I mean, look, Miriam, Labour said they'd smash the gangs, didn't they? And the gangs have responded by using the record numbers of Channel migrants as advertisements to continue coming.
Yes, I mean, it's an utter disaster. I think Labour have achieved more deportations over the past 9 months, let's give them that. But in terms of preventing the Channel crossings, it's been a disaster. And of course, the reason is because the only way to stop it is to provide an instant deterrent, which is get locked up as soon as you arrive and then deported as soon as possible. That's, of course, what the Conservative government tried and failed to do with the Rwanda scheme, but at least there was some sort of plan in place to have a deterrent. And we know that there were migrants waiting for the general election to decide whether or not it was worth coming over, and perhaps that's why we've seen so many more since then. And it is a very, very effective business. I mean, you know, it's a classic business model, isn't it, to offer a kind of referral fee on a passage. But there is no other way apart from an instant deterrent, which is be detained as soon as as you land. But we know that Labour aren't even exploring that.
Yeah, I mean, they're being laughed at, aren't they, by these human traffickers and people smugglers? I mean, they obviously don't fear Keir Starmer or the Labour Party or the authorities at all. They are sending people over saying, if you do this on TikTok, advertise to people, we'll give you $2,000 off.
There's three things to say. Firstly, this absolutely destroys the notion that there are people seeking asylum. These are people who are economic migrants, and if they should be spoken about in that way so we can deal with people properly. So if you are seeking asylum, you can be seen in a different light. That's the first thing. Secondly, I said beforehand, Keir Starmer won't be smashing anything unless he has a relationship with the authorities in the country of origin. It is almost impossible to smash a gang internationally from home. He has to get over there. He has to have proper relationships with them. And thirdly, we need to say to people, if you come here illegally, you can't come here legally after that point. We need to say to people, part of coming here, however you get here, is keep hold of your documents. Because the problem we have, people are misusing our system. Our system was set up after the Second World War. I'm talking about human rights. It was the right thing to do then, but we seem to be incapable of understanding that people will game the system.
Yeah, I mean, this is a humiliation for Keir Starmer. Record numbers and people literally live streaming their way across the channel. I mean, that advert of breaking into Britain is being beamed around the world under Keir Starmer.
Well, I mean, I think actually in terms of smashing the gangs, one of the reasons we know about some of these videos is because the National Crime Agency has had them taken off and taken down. Now, it is a bit like whack-a-mole, and yet, new ones do emerge, but at least it shows that action is being taken against them. Miriam's absolutely right. Deportations have gone up. Yes, numbers across the channel are. It isn't an easy problem. Sean is also absolutely right that you can't smash the gangs by sitting in an office in Whitehall. You have to have relationships both with the countries of origin and the countries that people transit through as well.
So the Taliban and the Ayatollah.
No, well, I mean, in a sense, there's a big issue about returns. One of the issues about returns in this country is that the courts here are much stricter than any other courts in Europe about where you can and can't send people
the other argument
to.
Is that we've got the woke judges, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, because what will be interesting to see is what if a case gets to court, as Sean was saying about people clearly not being asylum seekers, if you're live streaming your journey and you're giving a narrative that's rather different from that of an asylum seeker when you get here, what are the courts going to do when they see that? Let's hope they're tough.
But what it is, it boils down to over-interpretation of European law. There's a big debate in the House of Lords today about staying in ECHR. Yes, but can ECHR be renegotiated? The correct thing, we were saying we want to remove asylum-seeking cases. I believe if that isn't done, then European nations will start to consider seriously to leave the ECHR, which would be a shame because it's linked to many other parts of our legal system.
Absolutely, great. But I mean, there's no way Winston Churchill wanted us to have boatloads of Afghan men coming across the channel, is there? I mean, that's not why the ECHR really was set up. But, Miriam, can I just ask you on the second part of this, which is that we are clearly outsourcing our prison officers now to a whole range of different countries. I mean, the example that we showed there was Nigeria, a fabulously corrupt country where bribery is like the norm. I mean, I'm not being funny. I'm not meaning to accuse directly at all any wonderful Nigerian prison officers in this country of out-and-out corruption. But if I was to look for a place to employ prison officers from, I'm not sure Nigeria would necessarily be my first choice.
Well, I mean, being a prison officer is a really, really tough job. And we've seen actually a lot of scandals recently. Female prison officers who've had sexual relationships with prisoners. And clearly, from what reading between the lines, the standard, if you like, of prison officers has obviously dropped. We've got to ask why that is. And I think two questions. Why don't good people want to be prison officers anymore? Is it the pay? Is it the conditions? I suspect it's a bit of both. Or is it the case that there just aren't enough suitable Brits of working age to do the job? And is that why we're recruiting more? And I think, I
would say
both those things are true.
I don't think any of those things are true. And I tell you, first and foremost, if I was going to get prison officers, Nigeria seems like a perfectly good place. You know, strong, hard-working individuals, get them over and let them do it. By the way, I'm Jamaican, so don't look at me like that.
I wasn't looking like that. But
there's a deeper thing. We have developed a sick note culture in this country, and we have funded that through various different means of benefits and stuff. So it's quite hard to have a job and outperform what you could get on benefits. Being a prison officer is a very tough job.
It's a tough job.
Yeah, and if you can get anywhere near that on benefits, you go and get on the benefits.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is one of the reasons why we do have, in my view anyway, huge amounts of drugs and things in prison like that, and a lot of that, one would imagine, has to ultimately pass through some kind of prison officer or some kind of prison official just to get in.
No, they do a lot of over the wall.
They do a lot of over the wall, absolutely, yeah, fine.
Drones.
But the incentive is there, isn't it? If you're paid peanuts and it's a grim job, you're facing abuse all day, every day, and goodness knows what else as well, frankly, maybe sneaking a bit of gear in a fake pot noodle can or whatever it is that they do starts to seem a little bit more appealing, doesn't it? But if we are sending people to prison now, sending them there, and then they look around and they see that their prison officer barely speaks a word of English, it's not a great look, is it, really?
Well, I think that look, I think it's really important that whoever is coming to work in our public services can speak English properly. I mean, we've all had examples, over the years with, elderly relatives who, have been looked after by people whose English may not be great. Now, if they're doing, in many ways they're doing a great job, but if you can't communicate, it makes doing that job much harder, and it makes it much harder for the service user as well. So, I mean, I think I agree with Sean. I mean, I think obviously, ideally, we recruit in the UK. We need to get more people off benefits and into work. That's what the government's been talking about this week. But anybody who comes from wherever they come in the world, whether it's Europe or further afield, needs to be able to speak English.
I think it's the idea that actually as well, I mean, the way it was being advertised there essentially was if you want a 2-year visa for Britain, there's the care sector, which I can kind of understand, right? But there's also prison officers, and that's something that I think people... How do we fix that then? So if the solution is, well, we want to get more British people into doing that job, do we just have to pay them more?
Well, I think we probably, at the end of the day, we probably do have to pay them more. But as you say, this is a bigger problem than just prison officers. We've had the care worker visa scheme. I think there's several factors to this. First of all, we cannot ignore the role of the internet, and this applies to the story about TikTok and Channel Migrants as well. What's available, where you can go in the world, how you can get there, what other people's standards of living are, is now available to everybody in the world to know in a way that it wasn't even just 15 years ago. That has completely changed things like migration, visas, all those kind of things. There's a big role to play. But also, we do have a fundamental crisis of declining ratio of working-age people to elderly people in this country. And in the 70s, we had 4 working-age people for every 1 retired person. Now it's 3 to 1, rapidly approaching 2 to 1. We have a shortage of working-age population. Now, even if every single person who's on benefits got back into work tomorrow, we'd still have a shortage. That's how bad our demographic crisis is.
But there's 2 things. First, if you look at that video of the prison officer guy, let's be clear, he's doing the right thing. He has seen an opportunity that's been legally advertised to him, and he's basically saying to someone, if you're going to come to this country, get a proper job and do the work. That's the first piece. The second piece is, Miriam is completely correct about our demographic time bomb, but we fell into the trap long before that became an issue because we got drunk on cheap imported foreign labour, and we never did anything. And you see,
that has been an issue since the 70s. That's
exactly.
We don't recognise this.
But that's where we are now. And the problem is, it meant that our sick nut culture, farming in people to replace those people, scraping massive levels of tax out of everybody to pay for that, is why this country is facing decline now. And the problem is, Patrick, who will have the political fortitude to say enough is enough, because everybody in the political world is tiptoeing around the problem and has been for the last 20-odd years.
It's funny you say that, because just in the next segment, actually, I mean, we're covering a story about, in Birmingham, people are chasing bin lorries. This is Britain's second city. People are chasing bin lorries down the street because it's the only... and desperately trying to lob their rubbish in because the only way they get the bins taken out. Tax hikes again. I've just had a little look, by the way, on one of the front pages tomorrow. I think it's the Daily Mail. There's some kind of council tax hike coming, it seems, anyway, down the line as well. But, the social contrast in Britain, absolutely, completely and utterly broken. You look at that, I mean, that is third world, that, chasing a bin lorry down the street to try and, just make sure you don't sink down a pothole while you get there. But, Matthew, interested to get your views on this. In terms of this declining birth rate issue and us having to outsource our labour for things like prisons, etc., I think in Hungary today, they decided to do something which was, if you are a mum of 2, you don't ever pay income tax again. Do we need some policies like that?
Yes.
Well, I think we do need family-friendly policies, but the countries which have the highest productivity are the countries that have the highest participation of women in the workplace, which are often the Scandinavian countries. They have the best free childcare that you can, so that encourages more women into work. And actually, some of the countries with higher birth rates don't do so well because they have fewer women in the workplace, so therefore that's not adding value.
That isn't true. I mean, one of the top countries with the most free childcare in the world is Finland. They also have the lowest birth rate in Europe. It hasn't worked in Scandinavia. And actually, you think about the Hungarian policy, cutting income tax when women have children. That is a pro-women in the workplace benefit. You don't get any benefit unless you go to work and earn money. You don't get a tax break if you don't pay tax.
The issue we've had here, we've replaced family with state, and that costs a lot of money. Simple fact. And the other big hole we fell into is you need 2 salaries to survive in this country. Now, when this country works, when any country works, is when you can survive on 1 salary and a second salary can be tiny, and it's about the comforts of life, maybe an extra holiday or any holiday. But the point is, we've built an economy where we have too many billionaires who are dragging massive amounts out of middle class families into their passive incomes, and we've also got a state system that is too large and getting larger.
Yeah, I think that's a conversation I know I'll be having on my audience show tomorrow about this policy in Hungary. At face value, I think it seems like a fantastic policy because it incentivises women to have multiple children. It also incentivises them to go back to work.
Well, that's the key thing, because I think no offence to you,
it is,
but here's what the kind of liberal assumption is, women aren't having children because we need more childcare. But actually, women want to look after their children generally on themselves in the first 3 years and then need support to go to work. But forgetting about that 3 years is the big mistake.
OK, guys, thank you very much. Thank you.